Hey guys, it's Laura from Noble Nugget Stained Glass. Today's YouTube tutorial is going to be a stained glass tutorial on how to make this pattern using the creative castings. This one in particular is called La Petite Gargoyle. I'm making this one for a gift, but yeah, here's how it comes in the package. This one doesn't include the pattern. So you can basically go online to creativecastings.com and then you can find the patterns there. So no big deal. I just went to their website, found the gargoyle one, and then just printed it out on a normal, 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I think when I printed out, this is just how it came with the PDF of it. I'm thinking that the wings are just maybe going to be a little bit too big for this guy. He's maybe only 1.5 inches tall, so pretty tiny. So what I'm going to do is, there's two ways you can kind of do this. You can basically, trace this using like a light table like this, and kind of use your vinyl. Any kind of, this is just scrap vinyl, Cricut vinyl. And then you can, take a Sharpie and then just trace over the lines. But like I said, this pattern, the way I printed it, it's big, and I think it's going to be too big. So what I did is I just basically, took a picture of this pattern, and then I resized it, shrunk it down, and then printed it out just using my Cricut. And if you guys want a full tutorial on how to basically take an image and use your Cricut to make it into something that's translate to stained glass to cutouts, just let me know and I can show a more detailed video on that. So yeah, so here's what it looks like on the vinyl that I printed it out using the Cricut. It's kind of hard to see, but it's, the image, it's on there. So what I'm going to do next is basically take each piece out and place it onto the glass. I've already cleaned the glass ahead of time just using, your standard rubbing alcohol that you can get basically anywhere. I do that for two reasons. One, because, when you're using scrap glass in particular, a lot of times it's just been sitting in the bin, so it gets a little nasty. So a good, good cleaning with rubbing alcohol helps to make sure that the vinyl sticks to the glass when you're up to the grinding process. And then the other reason is sometimes when you're using scrap glass, you don't even know it, but there's already a score line run through maybe from a previous project, and you don't see it because your glass is a little bit crusty or dirty or whatever. And that's super annoying. I've been there, done that, and so that kind of helps avoid it. Of course, look it over and make sure you don't see any signs of scores. So what I'm going to do next is kind of how this guy's designed. They kind of did an ombre effect, which is really cool. The person I'm making this gift for, they really like blue, so I'm kind of going to do the same thing. I'm going to use like a, like a darker blue for, the top, medium blue, and then a light blue. And then go from there. So we'll just kind of get our glass picked out here. Like I said, this is just scrap glass that I already had kind of laying around. And then, yeah, just kind of pick up a corner. Push that back down and place it onto the glass where you want to cut it. Move that out of the way. Just maybe something like that. For this piece, we'll go to the right wing, which is up here. Just kind of lift it up, get it started, peel it off, and same thing, just kind of place it on the glass where you think it's pretty, you'll get an economical cut, so you can not waste glass, because everybody knows glass is expensive. So something like that. And then I'm just going to keep doing it, you know, all the way, next piece, and so on until all the pieces are complete, and then we'll be ready for cutting. Get going. And it's kind of nice to use the Cricut, you know, vinyl, because you can even use this piece as like your pattern piece. Because like I said, I had to resize everything, so instead of kind of guessing where everything goes when you put it back together after it's been ground and foiled and all that, you know, putting your pieces on top of this is nice just to have, you know, a guide. So we'll move this out of the way for now and get our last piece of scrap glass. And kind of like the other one, I like the look of this kind of swirl pattern in it, so we'll try and get as much of that in there. Maybe something like that. And yeah, so cool, we got all our pieces covered in the vinyl. Like I said, if you don't have a Cricut, or you're struggling with the process of figuring out how to make, you know, the Cricut actually do stained glass stuff, like I said, I will probably make a video on that, a more in-depth video on how to do the whole process in another video. But yeah, you can always, like I said, you can just take your vinyl, put it over a light source, a window, or whatever, if you don't have a light box, and then just trace your image like that, and you know, cut it out with just plain old scissors. Okay, I will get to the next step of cutting these out, placing it onto our template, our guide there, and we'll get on to the next step. All right, I am back, ready for the next step of cutting all these out. Just a couple tools that we're going to use is, safety first, make sure you have your eyeglasses on to protect, you know, from any kind of glass shards, safety glasses. I have these Breaker Grocer pliers, 2 sets. That way if I have any kind of small pieces, I can, you know, kind of snip them off together. I have a larger one, you know, it has a larger surface area, and then a smaller, flatter one that helps to get those really tiny shards out. And then lastly, just your standard running pliers. And of course our glass cutter. And something to cut on. You know, these little tiny square mats are pretty good because it catches all the glass shards from making a mess and getting everywhere where you don't want them to go. So we'll get started. Put on my glasses. And got my little handy light there. Sometimes when I cut, I like to hold the hold the glass with something kind of heavy, you know, like that, just so it kind of helps it so it doesn't move as much. And yeah, I'm gonna try and get as close as I can to the vinyl, so I don't have to grind as much. I hate grinding. It's my least favorite process of stained glass. And then just kind of run along the score line with your running pliers. You can kind of throw that into the scraps. And I'll keep on going here. And just break it off. go so well. Kind of get it from this side. There we go. I'm kind of, again, move the scraps out of the way. Here's one piece done. We'll go on to this little guy. Snap it off. Still left a little bit there. I'll clean that up with the breaker grozers. Just keep going on. Oops, that's not good. You never want to do what I just did and lift up from your score line. It kind of slipped because I'm having to get into some weird angles to make sure that everything's filmed here, but okay, it kind of worked out. I'll just have to grind that one a little bit more. So yeah, here's an example of this little nub that we can try and get off with these pliers. Just kind of put the flat side up and grab your other ones. I'm going to use the curved side up on this one just to kind of help me push down, separate it. There we go. And this one is ready for grinding. Put that away. And yeah, I'm just going to keep going along. We can follow along if you want, or maybe I'll end up speeding this up, but just gonna keep on going, keep on cutting. Okay, there you have it. There's our last piece. I'll kind of move everything aside and kind of show you guys how it lines up with our pattern. So I'll just kind of use something to pull down these edges. Make sure you guys can see it all here. But yeah, so looks like this piece goes here. This one here. I could have numbered these, you know, left and right, 1, 2, 3, whatever, just to help it so it's not so much of a confusing puzzle piece, but there was literally only 6 pieces, so I'm pretty sure I could figure that out. And there you have it. There is our 6 little pieces that are gonna go and eventually be soldered onto this little guy. And yeah, so next up is my least favorite part. It's the grinding spot. And yeah, if you guys want to see a little bit of the grinding process, I'll show you that before we get on to foiling and then soldering it together. Okay guys, it's time for the fun part. Grinding. So I'm going to grind a few pieces just to kind of show you the process. Probably won't do them all just to save time on this video. And then once we're done with this, I'll show you guys the next step, basically foiling, and then we'll get to soldering, and eventually soldering it onto the casting. So here we go, I'll get into it. Put my glasses on real quick. Alrighty, so that does it. There's all our 6 pieces, all ground, ready to go for foiling. The next step is basically I'll clean this all again with I'll take the vinyl off and then clean it all again with a rubbing alcohol before I put the foil on. So stick around, I'll show you guys the next step. Alrighty, so we're at the next step. So what I'm going to do now is take all the vinyl off of the glass and then just kind of wipe it with some rubbing alcohol. But yeah, you can see that the vinyl holds up really well to grinding. It stays on there, which allows you to get really, really close to how your template and your pattern is with your glass. So yeah, you just kind of pick up a corner, peel it off. Grab some rubbing alcohol and then just give it a quick wipe down, kind of to get the edges too. That way the foil's going to stick on there really nicely. Normally I'll use like a microfiber cloth if I have it, but whatever you got, this is just going to help kind of, again, make it so that foil's going to stick on the glass really well. So yeah, this one looks like it goes here. And then I'm just going to keep going. Alrighty, there we have it. All our pieces are cleaned and ready to go for the next step, which is foiling. So for my foiling, what are kind of your basic tools of what you're going to need. Again, you want to clean it with just some kind of rubbing alcohol just to get all the grinder dust and everything off of it so the foil can adhere to the glass and stick on there really well. But yeah, your basic tools is really simple for this. You're going to need, obviously, your copper foil. This is the brand that I have. It works pretty well. It comes in multiple different sizes. There's 1/4 inch, 7/32 inch, and then 3/16 are some of the common ones. There's even more, but those are the three kind of common go-tos. And then they have different backings too. Some of them are the copper backed, which looks, the backing looks just like the copper here. And then you got the kind that I'm using, which is black backed. So you'll see when I peel it, the backing on this is black. And then they have a silver one, silver backlined. That way, if you like to kind of keep your finished product, the solder, metal kind of color, it'll look like that. And then I always tend to use black backed because I love finishing mine with the black patina on most of my pieces. So I kind of want the, you know, especially on this kind of, you know, almost transparent glass. You'll see it when you foil it. You can kind of see the backing underneath it. So if I'm going to patina it black, it'll make sense that I use a black back foil. If your pieces are opaque, you know, you got opaque glass, you don't necessarily need to do that because you're not going to see through the glass like these kind of transparent ones. But I almost 99% of the time always use, just my preference, I always use a black back copper foil. So I'll get started and then kind of show you one piece, and then maybe I'll speed it up so this video is not too incredibly long. But yeah, so you need your copper foil. In this case, I have 7/32 black back copper foil. You need something to burnish it on with. That means basically getting it stuck onto the glass pressed really well. This is my go-to. I've been using this for years. I don't even see if it says anything on there. Tupperware. So really anything. I've used in the past permanent markers to kind of burnish it on, but I like this because it's got a little bit of flex to it, and you know, it's got a hard spot too, so you can really kind of burnish that glass on there really well, that foil on there. And then of course you're going to need just your standard pair of scissors to cut the foil off. So we'll get going, kind of roll some out, start peeling it back just a little bit. See, this is what I was talking about earlier, where it's black backed. And then one other quick tip, you kind of always want to start placement of your foil at a spot where there's a seam. For instance, like I know these two pieces are going to connect, so I'm probably going to start my foil right there. It just adds more strength in the long run, so you don't have the start of it, you know, kind of hanging down here or up there. I usually always try and connect it to a spot where there's going to be a seam. So in that case, I'll pick this one up, and then I'm going to kind of start it here. And then you want to line it up in the center as best you can. Kind of push down. I usually flip it over, and then this allows me to better see, you know, if the foil is straight centered up with the glass. And then I just kind of push my finger, get a little bit more off there, and then just kind of push down and keep going all the way around. Kind of like that. Just make sure it's centered up. And then once you get back to the edge, you know, I let it overlap a little bit and then just kind of cut it off and then push it down. Once you're at this step, then basically all I do is kind of squish the edges together. Kind of use my nail sometimes to get those corners to make sure they're on there, and then just push down. Keep pushing. Same thing, just push that edge over that. And then sometimes if there's like a big kind of curve like this, I'll kind of help it going at first, kind of just pushing the edges, you know, kind of flip it over, do it this way. And then I'll take my tool and then kind of help it along. That way the foil doesn't tear. Sometimes these inner edges, you know, especially if it's a really tight curve, your foil will tear. And you can fix that, but this just kind of helps alleviate that and prevent it from happening in the first place. So once you got it all wrapped around, like so, this is when you take your tool, and then, like I said, you can use a wooden dowel, you can use a pencil, you can use a permanent marker, whatever you got, and then just, I usually kind of start and then I just flatten the edges and kind of push down just to make sure that foil is really adhered to the glass. Flip it over and do the same thing to the other side. Sometimes I might over burnish. I just really want to make sure it's on there. And then I kind of take the harder part where it's not quite as flexy, and then I just kind of, almost like a rolling pin, I go over it. like this. You want to get all those little bubbles out if there are any, and then make sure it's really adhered to the glass. And just make sure you get all sides. And then I flip it over and I do it to this side. Make sure it's really on there. Like that. And then at this point, I kind of make sure I get the edges on there. So I just kind of go back and forth and pushing it, making sure it's on there. Just like that. And then sometimes I'll even kind of stand it up on its edge and then burnish it on there this way. It's kind of a smaller piece, so. So yeah, that looks like this one's done. I'll probably film one more just so you guys can make sure I drive the foiling point home. But again, I'm gonna start this one at a seam, so most likely I'm probably going to start it here. That way, that slit is somewhere that's already connected to a seam. So I'll probably start it right around here inside this inside curve. I usually snip as I go because this is going to grow. And for me, sometimes it just gets in the way, so I usually trim it off. So we'll get going, pick it up. Again, I want to start on this inside curve where the seams meet. I just kind of eyeball it to make sure it's centered as best I can. Push down just to get it going. And then I kind of flip it over, make sure, it's easy to see that everything's centered like this. And then just kind of push it up along with the glass and foil it all the way around. Make sure it's centered as best you can. And there we go, I got to where the ends meet. Again, I usually leave a little bit of overlap, and then I kind of cut it off. And then just push the rest of it down with your finger. If it's not completely centered, it's gonna leave a little bit of a tail. You can almost kind of see it in this piece here. There's like a little bit of overlap, so you can kind of clean that up with the X-Acto knife. But yeah, so this is on there. Again, I just kind of pinch and squish, fold those corners over. Same thing with this side. And then just pinch it to the glass. And there, that looks pretty good. And then just same thing as we did before. I just take this kind of flexy part and then just push it, make sure everything's adhered to. Flip it over, do the same thing on this end. So this is the tail that I was talking about. Like, I wasn't completely centered, so you can kind of see it leaves like a little bit of an overhang there. So just to make sure it looks nice and kind of, solid, even piece. At the end, I just take an X-Acto knife and just trim that little tail off. You want to do that before you get to the soldering stage, and it gives you one last chance to look over all your pieces, make sure there's no cracks or anything like that before you get to the soldering stage. Okay, you guys, I'm back. So there you have it. There's all our foiled pieces. I'll zoom in a little bit. You can kind of see them. So yeah, they're all foiled, ready to go. Like I said earlier, you know, if you didn't get it exactly centered up, you can take your X-Acto knife and just kind of clean up these little tails, just cut them off. That way your solder will look nice and straight. So yeah, so now we're almost up to soldering. What I'll do is get all my solder stuff out ready to go. And then once we're done with soldering, I'm going to actually probably end up wrapping this entire wing, same thing on this side, with lead cane. That way, you know, it's kind of got almost some hinge points on there, and I just want to make sure it's pretty structurally sound, and you know, it's not gonna, what I mean by hinge point is essentially like, you know, if it's kind of like two like this together, you know, it could easily kind of just, you know, go like that. It has a curve, so it's not a straight up hinge joint, but you know, just to minimize it, make sure it's secure on there. I'll probably just gonna once it's all soldered together, I'm gonna wrap it in lead cane. It kind of looks like this, just super flimsy, kind of bendy metal that you can kind of wrap it around, and that way it'll kind of like really secure and close those hinge joints. So yeah, I will show you guys soldering onto the next step. Be right back. Alrighty, we are finally ready for solder. So I'm going to start with the right wing. Just real quick before we get going, a couple things I use to help soldering make it a little bit easier for me. Some of the tools. I do wear gloves just because the flux is, you know, it gets messy. I start off using these gloves, and then eventually I'll switch to kind of like more of a heat safe glove when I'm dealing with the lead cane, just because it gets hot when you hold it, so it makes it a little bit easier to handle. So yeah, so I got my gloves. Of course, we got our solder. I'm just using a 60/40 solder. Flux, I'm using a gel flux. So we'll go ahead and pour some in here. Just a little, you know, throwaway plastic container. Squeeze in a little bit. Okay. Of course, our soldering iron. This is just a Weller 100p solder iron and a holder. Some kind of brush, a little flux brush to brush the flux onto the piece. And then this is just a, it's well worn in, but it used to be copper. Well, it is copper, but just a little copper cleaning thing to clean the tip of my iron with. I used to use a sponge. There's nothing wrong with using sponges, you know, whatever works for you. But I found that this copper works really well, and it really cleans the tip of the iron. And I mean, I've had this iron for many years, and it's still going, so I think it kind of likes the copper. So I've already, like I said before, those tails, I've trimmed them up with just using a X-Acto knife. So I just kind of, you know, went through and trimmed off anything that was excess, just to even everything out. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. I already have laid my pieces out. They're gonna move a little bit once I paint the flux on. You don't want to use too much, just enough to kind of make sure that the pieces are coated. So I kind of start at least getting the hinges painted, and then we're gonna set everything back up on our little template here as best we can. That way, you know, it ends up being even. set this up. Again, I'm gonna end up wrapping the entire piece in lead for more structural support. But yeah, that looks pretty good. So the first thing I'm gonna do is get my iron. I already had it plugged in for a little bit. It heats up pretty fast. We'll see if it's enough. I kind of dip it in here, and this just helps kind of clean the tip of the iron so it accepts the solder. Just kind of unravel a little bit. And first thing I'm going to do is basically just tack it. What I mean by tacking is just I'm going to tack all the little corners into place so they don't kind of move on me while I'm soldering. So just little balls there. Okay, so now that I got them tacked, now I can actually kind of hold on to it and make sure that it doesn't move around before I go further and actually solder the entire piece. So something like that. So I would call that tacked. At this point, you don't even, you can move it off the template if you wanted to, so you can kind of move it around because it's tacked in there. But I'll just leave it on there just to make it easier for the camera to see what I'm doing. But yeah, so now again, I just kind of clean my tip off, dip it in there, and then now I'm going to take the time to get a little bit more flux on the brush, dab off the excess, and then just paint it basically across all of it because it's such a tiny piece. I'm going to try and get all this done at once. And yeah, and then we're just gonna solder the rest of it. Take a little blob and just like that. There you go. Make sure everything's nice and looks good. I don't want the edges to get too high because again I'm going to be wrapping this in that lead cane, hobby cane, so I don't want it to be too high so it doesn't have a good fit. So I'll show you what I mean by this. Some people don't even foil the part where the hobby cane attaches to the glass. I do just because I feel like again it gives a little bit more structural soundness to the finished piece with foil all the way around it. So this will make sense, as I get a little bit closer to that point. But yeah, this side looks good. Don't even worry about those little globs that kind of run off the edge. We can use that solder to use for the edges. So I can move this out of the way now. And then same thing on this side. We're just going to flux this side and solder this. Just get some on there, and that looks pretty good. You can go over it a few times to make sure everything's smoothed out. And then again, I like to solder the edges. This is going to be under the hobby cane, so you shouldn't see it, but I like to do it anyway. Just keep going all the way around. And where it's kind of flat right there, that's okay because, like I said, this is gonna get wrapped, and if it's raised, what you want a nice raised solder bead, but you want it kind of flat where the edges meet. That way, the hobby cane has something to grasp, and it's not sticking out. So here's kind of the point where I switch up my gloves. Because I want to be able to handle the glass without burning my hand. So I'm going to switch to something that's a little bit more heat tolerant. These gloves are pretty good. I like them because I still have pretty good dexterity. They fit my hands well. But yeah, just from here, we're going to just kind of tin the edges. I don't want too many big fat blobs there because I want that hobby cam to sit on there nice and tightly. So we're just going through and getting all our edges. I don't need them to be rounded or anything. If I was leaving this, without the hobby cam, then absolutely I would definitely take the time to build up these edges. But like I said, it's gonna be wrapped, so you guys will see a little bit more on that. This almost looks like it's ready to go. I actually might take the time to flatten some of these edges where I know that the cam is going to go. Because I want it to have room to really wrap it around there, and I know these little blobs are going to kind of mess it up. So that looks good. Just do the same thing on both sides, kind of wipe the excess solder off. I'm just flattening everything out right now. It's gonna look messy right now, but when we finish it up at the end, when we get the hobby cam around it, you'll see it all comes together kind of nicely. All right, I think that one's ready. Move this to the side, and then we'll get our next piece set up. Okay, and then I'm going to switch back to my original gloves. Just for the flex portion. Okay, grab our flex brush and just kind of dab everything on here just to get it coated initially. Set everything back into place as best we can with our little template. I think that looks pretty good. All right, and then we'll take I already got some solder on there from the last, and just, again, we're gonna tack it. All right, that looks pretty good. And we'll take our brush again and just make sure everything's coated in flex. And then we'll kind of solder the entire thing. So I want these edges to be flat, so I'm purposely trying to flatten these out ahead of time. Everything else, nice rounded bead. And then when you're tinning your edges, it'll kind of help flatten everything else out that you want flat, like these sides. Like I said, it might look a little messy now, but we will fix that once we put our hobby came on. Flux this side. Okay, again, I'm going to switch my gloves up just so I can handle the edges a little bit easier, not burn my hands. I purposely left the edges flattened for the hobby cam. Oops. The flux is super slippery. And then yeah, I just tin the edges with the solder that's kind of left on the iron. Again, I want everything nice and flat. I'm not going to bead my edges. Okay. I think we're on the home stretch. Here we go. So we got two little wings ready to go to be added to our hobby cane. And yeah, I will show you guys that part. Okay, so we're at the point of putting our hobby cane onto the wings. Here again, here's the hobby cane. It has a little channel that you can rest the glass in there, and then it kind of hugs the edges, and then you just solder it together. Again, it's very bendy, pliable, easily wrapped around the edges. But before you use it, it's a good idea to just kind of like stretch it out. They make stretchers, lead stretchers, that'll kind of do this for you, but doing this just helps kind of get it more rigid, add strength to it. And I mean, you don't want to overstretch it, but you want to give it a good tug and make sure that it's not floppy. So just kind of pull it along. So we got that stretched out. Kind of a good idea. They come in either 3 feet or 6 feet lengths. So instead of messing with a whole big roll of it, you can kind of take a string to your pattern piece, something like this, and then just kind of like eyeball, wrap it around, all the way around, and then you can kind of get an idea of where, you get the gist. Keep wrapping it all around, and then that way you get an idea of how big of a piece you need to cut instead of fumbling with a huge piece. So kind of move this out of the way. And then, what I'm going to do is I kind of like to start placing it at a point where there's a seam. So kind of like where this is a good spot. These two pieces will join there. And then instead of kind of like all the way over like this, I'm going to push it in just a little bit. That way when it does wrap around on itself, when it returns, it has a nice clean flat, and it's not kind of like sticking out or anything like that. So yeah, so just with this, just kind of you know, push it in there. My hands might get in the way of this, so I apologize. And you can see it's kind of bending with the shape of the pattern, and just bend it around. Kind of like this. Just kind of at least get it started into the general shape, and then, you know, some of these tight curves like this, this piece here, you can kind of take you know, like needle nose pliers, and then just help squeeze it in there, squeeze it along so it kind of follows the shape. I might turn it this way so I can get a better grip. Maybe you can see it better that way too. And sometimes it actually helps just to get it going, to solder, you know, solder it in place. So it's not, you know, moving on you. So I might actually do that. We'll see. I might just get this corner started, kind of like right there. And just, you know, kind of tack it into place. That way it doesn't really move on us. Maybe move it over just a hair. Let's see. Maybe something like that. And I'm just going to tack it in. There we go. So now I can kind of squeeze it in here a little bit better. Something like this. There we go. And just keep continuing it all the way around. It's going to have another little curve here. And yeah, sometimes just soldering as you go will kind of help it just to stay on. Just trying to clean this edge up so it's nice and tight. Sometimes just getting in there and like pushing it like this, you know, push it up against the glass. Sometimes actually lifting the entire thing up. I'm just going to keep messing with this until I get it nice and pressed up against the glass as best I can. looks pretty good. We can solder this in. At least just kind of tack it. This edge. Just kind of flip it over, make sure there's no gaps on both sides. And that looks pretty good. So we can tack this piece in as well. Just grab a little bit of flux, grab a little bit of solder, and just there we go. So that's on there. And then we're almost getting closer here. I'll take it and keep wrapping it around. And just keep pushing it. Nice and tight as you can against the glass on both sides. Sometimes just giving it a little curve kind of helps. So something like that I think looks good. So yeah, I ended up having to take my gloves off because it's just getting a little bit too slippery with those gloves. But that looks good. I'm gonna flex this spot and get some solder in here to hold it. There we go. And then just a little bit on this side. And we're almost to back where it wraps along itself. So yeah, you'll see it right now it looks sloppy, but you know, when we get to the end of it, I'm gonna clean it all up and solder around the edges, you'll see. So I'm just gonna keep wrapping it along. Yeah, make sure it's centered along the glass. And just help bend it along into the shape of it, and then push in there as best you can and get it nice and tight on both sides. So something like that looks good. And then here, like I said, where it kind of butts up against its original joint, you're going to want to cut it off. Cut off the excess. So maybe right about here. Push everything together. Make sure it looks all right on both sides. You can always trim one side if you need to. I have to trim off just a little bit more. You can kind of see this little nub sticking up. So yeah, that looks better. Okay, yeah, then we can solder this closed. Grab a little bit of our flux, a little bit of solder, and then just close those all up. So now that we have it basically shaped how we want it. Now we can kind of really tighten everything up and get it how we want. So yeah, so now we got it all buttoned up. We can kind of go through and kind of crimp the edges a little bit more, make sure it's nice and tight, and then solder, you know, both sides. So kind of like right here where it's kind of curvy a little bit, and just try and as best you can to, you know, push that in, make it look nice and sharp. There you go. Get it a little bit closer to the edge. Same thing with this spot. Just give it a little squeeze. Doesn't look too bad on this side. So yeah, so now what I'm going to do is finish soldering the rest of it. So we'll take our flux and basically just everywhere around it, all the edges, just kind of like how we did in the beginning. I'm gonna solder it all basically together. And this is where kind of leaving those edges flat helped us so the hobby cam can fit all the way around it. But basically what you want to do, let me clean my tip real quick. Just grab a little bit of solder, and then I kind of like to just hold it and then let it, you know, kiss the top, and then just back down. Same thing on this side. We kind of already got it going there, but just let it kiss the top. Make it have a good seam that it connects to the hobby cam with. Same thing here. There we go. Just keep going around. Looks good. And then just keep going everywhere there's a seam where it connects to the hobby cam. Just keep going. Okay, and then I'm just gonna solder the edges. Really gonna add some structure to it. You don't want to keep your iron too long on the hobby cam because eventually, you know, it'll melt. That's not good. But I'm just kind of closing in the gaps with some solder. Here's where gloves are really gonna be handy because it's hot now. It's gonna be very hot to handle. Just kind of fill it in there as best you can. And then just touch up your soldering, make everything nice and smooth. Good. One more little kind of gap here. Try and close that up. Going all the way around. All right, and that is nice and secure. I'll change up to some different gloves. And then we're gonna flip it over and do the same thing to this side. Just flex it all up pretty good. And just, let's see, I'll close this corner up. Just let it kiss the edge of the lead there. And then we'll touch up our seams. So everything looks nice and smoothed out. Same thing here, just let it kind of kiss the edge of the hobby king. There you go, looks good. Nice raised bead, and then we'll go ahead and smooth everything else out. Just like how we normally solder. Keep continuing along. Kind of filling these edges. Just like that. Maybe right here. Sometimes holding it at an angle will help to really get those edges in there, kind of like this. You just want everything to look nice and closed up. And again, this really adds to the structural soundness of it. Even with these gloves, it's super hot to hold on to. Ooh, yeah. Sometimes you just gotta let it cool off before you continue. You know, you risk soldering too long, maybe a heat crack, or that's not good. Just keep kind of filling in the edges. Wherever there is one. And right in there. And just keep going along this edge. I think we're looking good. I think I got all the edges. And then of course our last little, where the ends meet, one more little bit of flux, and then we're just gonna solder that little bit closed. So grab some solder and just, there you go. Maybe just a little bit more just to get it nice and rounded. Okay, that looks good. Looks like everywhere is coated pretty well. I might kind of try and clean this edge up a little bit. There we go. That looks better. Oh yeah, it's hot. So, here we go. We got one wing done and ready to go. So we're gonna do the same thing to this wing. You can kind of see the difference, with without the hobby came and with it. It definitely adds some weight to it too. So we'll see. Hopefully when we solder it onto this guy, hopefully it holds up pretty well on there. We'll get to that in a little bit. Yeah, we'll get going on this one. Again, I already pre-measured ahead of time, kind of using the string method just to, just wrapping it around to see how much the hobby came I'm actually gonna need. And, you know, I wrapped it all around. And so we'll kind of use that to ballpark guess how much we need to cut. Okay, so I cut my piece kind of to the length that I think I'm gonna need. Again, I'm gonna just take the time to stretch it. Just really pull it. All right, that should do it. And again, we're gonna try and start it at a spot that has a seam on it. So we did on this side, we did it on the top, so we can do that again. Maybe right around here. And then just start wrapping it around. And let it meet up with this part. There we go. And same thing on this side, just kind of close it off, close it together. And before we do that, we can kind of do any touch-ups with the, you know, squishing it together with the old wires, or the needle nose pliers, before we really solder it into place. I think that looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit more here. There we go. Okay, and then same thing with this side. We'll just get a little bit of flux and close up all these little edges. Grab a little ball of solder and just connect those. And then we can start soldering it all together. So again, just let it kiss the edge of the hobby came and then back down onto the actual solder, like that. Looks good. Flip it around here to get this little joint. And same here. And now we can kind of clean up the rest of it. Just flux really everywhere along it. I got everything there. Yeah, where that hole is, take your flux brush, get a little bit more around there, and then just close that little hole with some solder. Grab a little dab, and just like that. Nice little bead on there. Okay, there we have it. There is both our soldered pieces. We got our left wing and our right wing. And now we're at the point of soldering it onto our little figurine. So some tips before we get down to that stage is it's a good idea to maybe hit this guy with some steel wool for a couple reasons. It's going to help the patina stick onto this guy a little bit better. You know, if it's been in the cabinet for a while, maybe it's oxidized, and then also it'll help the solder to actually stick on them. But it should. It's lead. They've worked well in the past, but you know, just kind of give it a quick little brushing of where the wings are going to attach, at least. Maybe all over, just to make sure we can really get that patina to stick on it. Okay, so we're ready to solder the wing onto the casting. I kind of want the wings to be swept back a little bit, so I slid a little rock under there. I've already fluxed where I want the wing to meet, so I'm going to grab a little ball of solder and then just solder them on. There we go. I think it's attached. Just keep flooding it with solder to make sure. We'll get this wing on there and then we'll do the next one. I think I see it attached on there. Just want to be careful because the wing's heavy and you just want to make sure it's soldered. So I'm probably going to hit it with a little bit more flux and see if I can pour some more solder in there before I flip it over. Try and grab a little ball and push it in there as best I can. Okay, so I think it's at least attached. I'm gonna flip it over gently and try and get this backside soldered. Hit it with some flux. Grab some solder. There we go. Just get it attached. Looks like it's on there. I don't want to mess with it too much right now to risk, you know, burning through the lead casting or the hobby came. So at least it's attached. Now I can actually go ahead and see where there's anywhere where there's gaps where I can kind of add a little bit more solder. So kind of like on this spot here, just flux it really good. Hold it up as best you can and then just hit it with one more little dollop of solder. There we go, that looks like it connected on there good. Like it's attached, and yeah, just anywhere kind of like on this top part. I'm gonna go ahead, the more places where you got solder on there, the better. Flux it up right here, and then we're gonna hit it with some more solder to really make sure that this wing's attached. go, like that. Now I'm just kind of cleaning it up. Anywhere I kind of see holes, I'm just going through and adding more solder. Kind of right up here on this little tip. Make it nice and strong, connecting. That looks really good, I think. Okay, so we have one wing on, and then we're going to do the same thing for the other side. Looks like he's probably going to be able to stand once he's balanced out. So same thing, I just kind of I'm gonna twist him around here. And do the same thing for this side. So what I did was I grabbed a little rock, put that under there, and now I'm gonna eyeball where it makes the most symmetry sense here. Make sure the wings are doing the same thing on both sides. That's why I have the rock kind of holding it into place. I think I need to move it up just a hair. Something like that, I think. Maybe move it up. Because you want the placing to be right. Because once it's soldered on there, it's on there. I think that looks pretty good. We're gonna flex them up. At least just try and get it attached. And then we can kind of fumble around with it. That looks even. Maybe a little bit more that way. Just making sure it's as even as I can possibly get it. I'm kind of using his head as a guide to make sure it's flat. I think that looks pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and solder in. Grab a little ball and just at least try and get it attached. There we go. A little bit more up here. So good. So now it's attached. I can kind of lift it up gently and get the rest of it soldered into place. Like the back here. Just be pretty generous with the flux. You want to make sure it really sticks on there. Make sure it's even. It's looking okay. And then just grab another ball, solder, and just get it on there. Just like the other side, once it's attached, you can kind of go through and really fill it in with solder. Make sure it's super secure on there. Don't go too much because again you risk burning through the casting and the hobby cane. If you're finding that it's having a hard time accepting the solder, just use a lot of flux. Get that flux on there. looks good. We're gonna hit the top part just like we did on this side. Add more flux. And just kind of load it in there with solder. I want to make sure it's attached. Okay, well, that looks good. It's okay if it's a little bit lumpy because it kind of goes along with, you know, the look of the gargoyle. He's lumpy and bumpy. Just kind of adds to it. So I'm kind of purposely making some lumps. Alright, that looks good. I'll flip it over, see if I'm missing any big spots. I think maybe right here could use a little bit more solder. There we go. That looks good already. Check this side out. Maybe add some to this side. Looks like it could use some more. And solder overload here. There we go. That looks good. Nice and connected. I'd say he's looking pretty good. I'm just trying to clean up some of the edges, make the spot smooth where I want it, and then add bumps where I want the bumps. Do one more kind of look through, see if there's any spots we missed to add solder. Yeah, I think maybe right here. This little hole. Maybe one more little douse. Just connect them in there. Just going to make it more secure. That'll do it. Okay, I think that's it. The true test, will see if he stands. Look at that, he does. Yeah, I think he turned out pretty cool. I'm going to give it a bath, get all the flux off of it, hit it with some steel wool again to help the patina stick to it. I'm going to patina him black, and I'll show you guys the end result. Alrighty, so I already went ahead and gave this little guy a bath just in cold water and hit it with some steel wool. Then I'm going to use quick clean, just give it a quick spray on both sides. This basically just kind of helps to get any last little remnants of flux off of it. Just kind of rub it in there with a paper towel. Just kind of buff it up a little bit. Kind of focusing on the seams, edges. Okay, that looks pretty good. Then I'm going to grab a plate and And we're gonna give him a little bath in some patina. This is just a black Novocaine patina. I usually just pour a little bit into the lid, like so, and then just pour it right onto the piece. So a little bit on this side, a little bit on this side, and then just rub it in. Rub it all the way in. Okay. Just keep rubbing. Get it on the actual casting. Nice and coated. Just using my fingers to really rub everything in. Just like that. Okay. Just keep going. Starting to turn out nice and black. Dump some more on the back side and just rub it in. Make sure you get these outer edges. Really just douse them with patina. I'm not worried about the glass staining because it's pretty dark glass. It's blue, so if it were like whites, I'd be a little bit more tedious in applying the patina. I'd probably actually use a Q-tip to avoid getting it on the glass, but in this case, I know it's going to wash off okay. It's not going to stain it. Just kind of pick up some remnants and really get in there, kind of squeeze it in and just kind of make sure everything's coated with the black patina. I think it really gives it a sharp look. Again, get all those edges. This little ear under here. Even in this little tight bit where the edge meets. Kind of get in there as best you can, rub it around. Spreading it. So yeah, he's looking nice and black. Looking pretty good. So now kind of what I'll do is put the lid back on. I don't want to contaminate my the rest of it. And then I'm just going to take a paper towel and kind of damp the excess. I don't want to wipe all the patina that I just put on or off. I'm just kind of damping it so it's not soaking wet, right? Everybody does their patina a little differently, but this definitely works. Just kind of dabbing it along, just trying to get the bulk of it off. If you hear some weird breathing noise, that's just my pug snoring in the background. I apologize. He is a sleepy pug. Okay, and then I'm just gonna move the excess off here. And then while the patina is still kind of on there, still a little bit wet, is when I go onto the stage of taking some kind of wax. This is carnauba wax. It's pretty good for stained glass. You can use stained glass finishing compound or even Pledge glass cleaner. Just something to protect the solder lead lines, because you want to avoid getting that weird white crusty stuff that always seems to appear. So just give it a quick couple sprays, and then kind of wipe the excess off my hands here, off my gloves at least. Then I take a microfiber cloth and then just kind of buff up the glass a little, kind of go along the edges, even the lead lines. Just trying to get all that excess off of it. just like that. And squeeze them in there. Right now I'm just kind of focusing on the glass, wiping that off, polishing it up. And then I'll kind of focus on the lead lines. Sometimes I'll even kind of take a Q-tip to really get into those little tight corners just to make sure no patina is stuck on the glass. But yeah, just kind of take your time, buff away. Even the lead lines are okay to buff at this point. It's just gonna kind of help shine everything up. Don't forget the casting. You're gonna want to make sure the polish is on him to protect it from oxidizing. So yeah, I'm just gonna finish polishing this up. Sometimes I'll go back and forth with the finishing compound and then some more wax until I can get it to the shiny consistency that I want it to be. And yeah, make sure, you know, I didn't miss any areas. So I'll just kind of go back and forth doing this process a couple times with the patina and the finishing compounds. Might actually grab a toothbrush to get into these tight spots. But as a kind of finished result, you know, I think he looks pretty cool. Alrighty guys, so there we have it. He is all polished, patina, buffed up, cleaned up, ready to go. Stands up nicely on his own. I think the ombre kind of turned out pretty cool as far as the blues go. Here's the front and here's the back. Yeah, he's really cool. Stands up nicely. Turn off the backing of the light so you can kind of see it in normal light. Got a pretty cool detail on there. And yeah, that's it. I appreciate you guys watching, sticking around from start to finish, seeing the full step process from basically pattern to finished product for using those creative castings. Fun little project, neat little gift to give to a family member or friend. But yeah, I appreciate it guys. Please like, subscribe, share, comment. If you have any questions, I'm usually quick to respond to any questions in the comments. And yeah, if you're subscribed to my channel, I try and do stained glass videos at least once a month, sometimes 2 times a month. And yeah, this was a fun one, so I appreciate it. Thanks again. See you guys next time.